We have no choice. Within moments of my inauguration, we will begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history. No choice. We have no choice because this is not sustainable.
This operation will be expensive, but in the long run, it's going to save taxpayers money. But we need more resources. I pray that Congress, during the reconciliation period, gives us a budget to do this with. We are talking about the biggest national security vulnerability this country has.
Can you give us a number, Tom?
750,000 illegal aliens.
Give us a number of what you're going to need, what you're going to go to Congress to ask for.
I was asked that the other day, is $86 billion enough? $86 billion is a start. We need at least that to do this operation. We got to buy beds. We got to have we got to do removal flights and ground transportation and medical care of the people we arrest. $86 billion is a start.
Donald Trump made the promise of mass deportations a key feature of his election campaign in 2024. But as his fascist fantasy gets closer to becoming an actual reality, people are starting to wake up to the economic costs associated with the plan.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Reichlin-Melnick. Most Americans, when you talk about the cost to the government in billions of dollars for this deportation, are going to say what most of us would fundamentally say: keep me safe. I don't care what the hell it costs. So is it realistic, if we're talking about a massive deportation, for us to be looking at federal budgets for financing?
I think it's important for people to understand that ICE already goes after people with criminal records all the time. And in fact, that has been the priority of the previous 2 to 3 or more presidential administrations, and is what Congress sets. So the overwhelming majority of people who would be the targets of a mass deportation campaign do not have criminal records. They are people who have been living otherwise law-abiding lives in this country, living, working, and in many cases paying taxes.
So you estimate, at least in one publication here, that the cost of massive deportation would be $316 billion?
At a minimum. In fact, if you look at it over the course of an 11-year operation, it could be as much as $1 trillion.
And that's for conducting sufficient arrest, detaining immigrants en masse, legal processing, and removal for those 4 categories.
That's right. And we're looking at hundreds of billions of dollars to carry out a deportation of 4% of the U.S. population.
So if you want to do a massive deportation to get Mr. Toure out of this country, you're talking about a massive amount of money that has to be spent.
Enormous sums.
And we hear from General Manner the impact it could have on our National Guard and military if they are given this responsibility. Have you taken that into consideration?
We weren't even able to account for the costs of the military, so you should consider our estimates to be conservative. The actual costs would likely be significantly higher because there are so many factors that we couldn't even attempt to estimate.
You write, to carry out over 13 million arrests in a short period of time would require somewhere between 220,000 and 409,000 new government employees and law enforcement officers. Nearly impossible given current hiring challenges across law enforcement agencies. Could you explain that?
Well, right now, ICE only has about 8,500 officers in the entire agency, and less than 1,000 are assigned to fugitive operations, whose job it is to go out into the community and arrest people. But because the overwhelming majority of undocumented immigrants have no interaction with the criminal justice system, they have no criminal offenses, that means that to arrest them would require going out into the community, finding them, and rounding them up. And in order to do that would require an enormous investment in personnel, far beyond any law enforcement operation ever conducted in the United States history.
So if we are determined to remove Mr. Toure, the prosecutor from Philadelphia, from America, and send him back to Sierra Leone or someplace like that, you're talking about massive amounts of money. If we are to focus on the truly dangerous people in this country, to make sure that they are removed, and should be, that is a lesser amount, for sure.
That's right. In fact, if you look at data on ICE's own data, non-detained docket, which has already been cited by several members here, that is looking at about 1.2% or less of people who have any sort of serious violent offense. And of course, the resources involved there would be much smaller than trying to deport 13 million people. But Congress has a choice. Instead of going down that path, we can instead crack down on exploitation, strengthen millions of families, and build American prosperity by providing undocumented immigrants a way to fix their papers.
You have to understand the philosophy that all of these tech bros and the technocratic tyrants and the billionaires who come from this very oppressive society in Silicon Valley subscribe to in order to understand what their long-term goals are for infiltrating the White House. And so it really all begins with the fact that they subscribe to a neo-reactionary political movement, otherwise known as dark enlightenment. And essentially what that means is that they want society to operate like a corporation. What is it going to mean for the future of our country, our national security, and the incoming Trump administration if we have a bunch of technocrats who are also essentially welfare queens because their companies are receiving government subsidies and they want to take over our defense industry? If you have a bunch of tech bros with billions of dollars and direct unfettered access to the vice president and the president of the United States, and then they are also, very cordial with our adversaries, as in China and Iran. We see that Elon Musk is having these meetings off the books with Iranian officials, with Chinese officials. What does that mean for us and the future of our constitutional republic?
Okay, hang on. Yeah, okay, hang over a second.
When Laura Loomer is making sense, you know that all hope is lost. This MAGA civil war between Elon Musk's billionaire tech bros on the one hand and the MAGA base on the other has exposed exactly what the mass deportation plan is really all about. Elon Musk knows that his businesses, as well as many industries in general, rely on immigrants. He also knows that Trump's plans, if carried out in their entirety, would lead to a catastrophic collapse of the US economy, ultimately hurting his very own bottom line. The rhetoric plays well to the base, but the trauma and the economic depression that mass deportations would cause in the end to America would end up making Trump deeply unpopular, even with America's most racist MAGA disciples. This infighting that we're seeing gives the left a chance to show the cracks and the gaps in logic, and to expose MAGA Republicans for the slimy, racist hypocrites they are.
Members make a difference here at TYT. You help make the show happen, and we see you in the chat with your loyalty badge. Click the join button to become a member today.